marginalization and porous borders for over a decade. They have displaced millions, destroyed infrastructure, and made entire regions uninhabitable. Military operations have degraded their capacity, but they persist because the underlying conditions, which is poverty, exclusion, and weak governance, remains. In the Northwest, bandit networks operate with near impunity across Zamfara State, Katsina, Kaduna, and the Niger states. They have turned kidnapping into an industrial enterprise, collecting hundreds of millions of naira in ransom annually. They effectively control territory. They even levy taxes on communities and have better weapons than many local security forces. Clearly, this is not mere terrorism, but organized crime at a scale. Across this context, we see a consistent pattern. Armed non-state actors thrive where state capacity is weak, where economic opportunities are absent, and where communities feel abandoned by government. The interplay between insecurity and economic stagnation becomes a vicious cycle. Insecurity drives away investment. Lack of investment deepens poverty. Poverty feeds recruitment into armed groups. Armed groups create more insecurity. So breaking that cycle requires more than military operation. It requires governance, economic inclusion, and sustained state presence. Now, the African strategic dilemma, which is engagement versus containment. Let me now address the core strategic challenge African states and security services face regarding non-state actors. Non-state actors cannot be completely eliminated. They are permanent features of the landscape. That is the starting point for any realistic strategy. Pure containment strategies often fail. When you treat all non-state actors as threats requiring elimination, you drive them underground. You radicalize, moderate, and create adversaries where partnership might have existed. Heavy-handed responses alienate communities. And when communities are alienated, you dry up intelligence flow. And you give the armed group recruitment propaganda. So, but pure engagement also carries risk. When you legitimize actors who undermine state authority, you weaken the state's monopoly of violence and governance. When you negotiate with groups that have committed atrocities, you create moral hazard, and others believe that violence pays. You look at the dilemma. Now, the way forward. The way forward requires strategic differentiation. You must distinguish between actors, understand their motivations, and calibrate responses accordingly. Partner with non-state actors who align with development goals, private sector investors, diaspora networks, civil society organizations, tech entrepreneurs. These actors can deliver what states struggle to provide. The role of the state is not to replace them, but to create enabling environments through regulations, infrastructure, and security, public-private partnership channels, non-state actor capacity towards national development objectives, You must be in position to combine all the combinables. In Imo State, we have partnered with private investors to develop physical and digital infrastructure. We have worked with civil society organizations on youth empowerment and community development. These partnerships work because the interests aligns, takes care of investors' return on investment, and then guarantees government intention to develop the place and grant citizens the services they require. However, armed groups, criminal networks, and actors who create parallel governance structures must be disrupted. They must be degraded and, where necessary, eliminated. This requires intelligence-led operations, not indiscriminate force. It requires understanding their networks, understanding their financing strength and source, understanding their recruitment pattern and style, and operational patterns. But containment alone is insufficient. You must also address the conditions these groups exploit. Military operations create temporary security, but governance, economic opportunity, and justice create lasting stability. We must build state capacity so fewer gaps exist for malign actors to exploit. This is the long-term imperative. Non-state actors, both constructive and destructive, thrive in spaces where the state is absent or ineffective. The more capable the state, the less space exists for malign actors to operate. So we need to capacitate our security agencies, introduce technologies, invest on security, and make it a national priority. It is necessary to stress that state capacity entails more than military strength. It includes delivering services like education, continuous education of our service personnel by this kind of trainings and exposure, healthcare, justice, and infrastructure. It means responsive governance that citizens trust must be there. It means economic policies that create opportunity. It means presence in rural and border areas where state authority has historically been weak. In addressing this and considering and thinking about all these that have been outlined, we will now want to look at the way forward in Africa as a continent. So what we can now say is way forward, a continental approach. Non-state actors operate transnationally. Boko Haram moves between Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, and Niger. Armed groups in the Sahel cross borders with ease. Criminal networks traffic weapons. They traffic drugs and people across the continent. Diaspora financing flows globally. Digital platforms operate beyond the full control of any single state. Therefore, African response must match that reality. It is becoming very clear that in the continent, no one country can manage and contain insecurity without the other. Intelligence sharing across African states or transnational non-state networks should be encouraged. We need real-time information exchange, joint threat assessments, and coordinated operations. Bilateral agreements exist, yes, but they are insufficient. What we need are standing frameworks through the African Union, and regional economic communities like the ECOWAS that will make intelligence sharing routine and exceptional. Also, regulatory frameworks that will enable legitimate entrepreneurship while constraining illicit activities should be in place. We must make it easier for constructive non-state actors to operate. Here I'm talking about streamlined business registration, access to finance, and infrastructure support. Simultaneously, we must tighten oversight on illicit financing, money laundering, and unregulated actors exploiting regulatory gaps. There exist in Africa regulatory gaps for both transactions, legitimate, illegitimate, and then payment systems. Public-private partnership that channel non-state capacity toward development should be harnessed. Governments lack resources to build everything citizens need. Private actors have capital. They have the expertise and the efficiency. The role of the state is to create frameworks where private investment serves public good through regulation, incentives, and strategic alignment. Implementing security sector reforms that address root causes, not just symptoms of non-state actors. Challenge should be prioritized. The challenge of having a sufficient security presence dominate our communities, rural and urban centers. Security strategies must integrate governance, economic development, and justice. That requires training, doctrine, and institutional culture that sees security holistically. Building state capacity so governments can deliver what the citizens need is very essential. This is the ultimate solution. States that provide education, that provide health care, that provide justice and economic opportunities don't face the same like the states, actors, challenges, like states who don't. Capable states don't provide for voids. They don't provide for gaps for non-state actors to exploit. Building capacity takes time. It takes resources and political will. It requires investing in infrastructure, training civil servants, strengthening institutions, and ensuring government presence in neglected areas. Typical politicians may chase quick wins, and will find it to be unglamorous, but it is foundational. So creating economic pathways that make legitimate entrepreneurship more attractive than illicit activity is essential. Young people join armed groups and criminal networks because they see no alternative. If legitimate work paid better than kidnapping, recruitment would plummet. If economic opportunity existed in rural areas, migration to urban slums and criminal enterprises will decline. As a matter of security strategy, states must create those pathways through skills training, access to capital, market linkages, and infrastructure that connects rural producers to urban consumers. Regional coordination through the African Union, through the ECOWAS, and other blocs to manage cross-border non-state threats is required. We need standing frameworks for joint operations, harmonized legal regimes for prosecuting transnational crimes, and coordinated development strategies in border regions. The multinational joint task force against Boko Haram is a model. Though implementation has been uneven, we need similar frameworks across other regions and threats. In trying to close this conversation, distinguished participants, esteemed audience, from all I have outlined above, one thing remains central. The ground norm panacea for containing the rising influence of non-state actors in Africa is good governance. And this must come through a truly democratic process. A true democratic process lays the firm foundation for an accountable, transparent, and results-driven governance. This implies good governance. African nations must therefore embrace democratic governance. Good governance delivers education, delivers healthcare, economic opportunity, and justice. The very foundations that deny disruptive non-state actors the conditions they need to thrive and flourish. In Nigeria, we are beginning to see evidence of this principle at work. Under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, deliberate policy reforms are yielding measurable results. Nigeria has recorded trade surpluses for 6 consecutive quarters since 2023. Our gross domestic product growth is accelerating. Our foreign reserves are strengthening. Inflation, though still a challenge, is declining. New jobs are also being created across different sectors. More opportunity means greater stability, restored confidence, and it weakens the appeal of armed groups and criminal networks where economic pathways exist. Recruitment into violence declines are discouraged. This is the connection we must understand. Governance and security are inseparable. Military operations create temporary stability. Good governance creates lasting peace. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, non-state actors represent both the future of African development and one of its greatest threats. Your mandate is to understand them, engage the constructive ones, contain the destructive ones, and build state capacity to reduce the space in which malign actors operate. This requires operational excellence, the tactical skills to disrupt armed groups, dismantle criminal networks, and protect citizens. But it also requires strategic vision, the ability to see beyond immediate threats to structural conditions that create them. You must be intelligence professionals who understand that security is inseparable from governance, from economic opportunities and justice. You must be strategic thinkers who recognize that non-state actors are not anomalies to be eliminated, but realities to be managed. The work ahead is difficult. It requires patience, resources, and political support that may not always be forthcoming. It requires navigating tensions between kinetic actions and governance reforms, between immediate security and long-term stability, between national sovereignty and regional coordination. But this is the work of Africa's security architecture that they must deliver. I agree, it is not easy. Sadly, there is no alternative. The threats we face are evolving faster than our responses. The non-state actors we confront today are more capable. They are more financed and better financed and more networked than those of operations 10 years ago. If we respond with yesterday's strategy, we will fail. If we respond with intelligence-led operations, grounded in strategic understanding of non-state actors' dynamic, we have a chance. I leave you with this. The intelligence you gather, the operations you conduct, and the strategies you design will shape Africa's future, and we'll be able to be in position to determine the impact of non-state actors whether they are partners in development or obstacles to it. The responsibility is profound, and it rests with men and women in this room. As you go about learning more, introducing modern techniques, encouraging technology, sometimes it's not the office, it's the occupant of the office. So the integrity of the office of occupant is the integrity of the office. And in this case, engagement. Our own propaganda machinery was also very strong. We used the community leaders, the town unions, the churches, the Muslim leaders, the clerics, to speak to the conscience of our people, creating stronger logic. For instance, they started as a time, they painted a picture that it was a fight between farmers and herders. We were able to set up a joint task force made up of Muslims and Christians, farmers and herders, up to local government, up to ward levels. And we created various committees to settle disputes and misunderstandings. And that took that away from them. And having done that, they said the Hausa Fulanis are in the bush, killing our people. And when we did the arrests, 99% of those arrested and suspects, none was an Hausa man or a Fulani man. So we paraded them, and they strengthened our propaganda machinery, and our media came to it. And then, more critical to it, the relationship between government and the governed is defined and determined by performance. When the people see that you are performing and you are accountable, recall that from 2020 to today, I have been very religious in doing town hall meetings, stakeholders meetings, explaining to stakeholders what government is doing. And of course, you know, seeing is believing. So that took care of the perception. So they will come with their propaganda, social media, and that and that. We will also embark on social media, but the traditional media system, community engagements, and then town hall meetings also helped us in managing the perception, and that led trust. When roads that were abandoned for the past 20-something years are being repaired and made more treble, when pensioners that were not paid for over 26 years are being paid their salaries and pensions and gratuities, that public trust will begin to come out. When water is available for people to drink, when the hospitals are available for people to be treated. Imo State today, I can tell you, operates the best health insurance program. The entry point for medical doctors into Imo State Civil Service is the highest paying point for medical doctors in up to 70% of the states in the country. So you can see people, even despite all this propaganda, coming from outside the state, wanting to be engaged to work in Imo State. When I entered Imo State in 2020, our internally generated revenue was at best 380 million per month. As I speak, we are very close to 5 billion a month. So when the people see, they believe, and when they believe, they follow. And government is feared because they answers and provides the needs of the people. Even God we worship. There is a reason why we kneel down every day and pray to God. Some people, when they pray up to 3-5 years, nothing is coming, they begin to look for another God. But if you have faith, you remain resilient, and you are firm, God will answer your prayers. So that takes care of it. Then the Syndicate 2. This is an I will just say it, but it is a security decision. We don't have any formal outfit called a Babago. What happened at a time, because at the beginning of the problem, our people didn't understand whether it was the real agitation or these people were just out for criminality. And it was dangerous for police people on uniform or military people on uniform to come out because they became targets. So the Department of Security Services created a special force and then created a uniform that is not like the orthodox uniform. So because they were feared, and the meaning of Ebebe is fear, and the meaning of Agun is lion. So we address them as Ebebe Agun. so they were completely armed and specially trained, and they were very effective. And where people were not, ordinary police were not going, they were able to go there and come out with results. So we called them, christened them Ebebe Agun. There is nothing called Ebebe Agun. I'm able to reveal this secret because I'm here. I won't say this outside. So, on tourism, we have in 2022 launched the IMO development plan, 10 years IMO development plan. And tourism development is really on the front line of among other areas of development proposed by that document. Today, you must have heard that there is Orash Energy Free Trade Zone approved by Mr. President, which is now giving us a seaport from Oguta to Orash River to the sea. And we are opening up the Oguta area for tourist attractions. The Otamini and Wori River is now, we are building a multi-billion naira public park in that place. It's still work in progress. The truth is that actually the insecurity that greeted our administration from 2020 was a sufficient distraction from the real thing we were to do. Monies meant for redevelopment, most of the monies went into insecurity and all the rest of the thing. The federal government, of course, security is in the exclusive legislative list, but most of them are not being funded the way they should be funded. So it is through state support. The subnational governments have to support you people really to be more effective and to be able to bring results. So it depleted our resources to the extent that what we planned to achieve, we did not really achieve that. So, but we are giving sufficient attention to the area of tourism development. The Syndicate 4, about political will. What is political will is public trust. You know, in the diplomatic session, it is not about the message. Sometimes you give somebody a message to go and give to the people. It is not the quality of the message. Sometimes it is about the messenger. So when you talk of political will, it's when the people trust you. They allow you to take decision on their behalf. Recall that by 2023, May 29th, when this current president announced subsidy removal, it was not an easy decision. But at a point, the political class said, okay, let's give him a chance. After all, upon the 3 presidential candidates, in their manifestos, all of them promised that when they come, they will remove subsidy. That subsidy came with its pains, initial pains. But today, you can see how the thing has resulted to more revenue to our people. I can tell you that all the serious subnational governments, none will now say they have no money to address at least the primary and the elementary problems of their states. So those reform policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu make states now to have more money. That is why I can stand up. I didn't wait for federal government to do Owerri to Umuahia Road, over 80 billion naira. I did not wait for federal government to do Owerri to Olu, over 40-something billion. Owerri to Okigwe. And we are now doing Owerri to River State boundary. I'm also resurfacing Owerri to Anambra boundary. If you repair all this infrastructure, lit up the place, you will discourage insecurity. People at the rural areas can plant even common pineapple, plug it in the evening, enter the transport bus, 10 minutes or 15 minutes, you are in Owerri. You sell it and go back to your village. So you make the place central and make life more meaningful for the people. So the politics of it is not because I'm a leader and then I must apply coercion. No. Sometimes through persuasion, you can convince people and get what you are looking for, and then allow force to be the last alternative. So that is a political way. As the chairman of Progressive Governors Forum, you see, over the years, you know and I know that government after government, many of them did not deliver on their promises. And that comes to the issue of public trust. So public trust eroded. So all I tell my colleagues whom I share now is that we have a duty to write our history. And the only way you can write your history is the legacy you leave behind. So it is about performance. Once you are performing, the people will believe in you. And when people believe in you, you have the enabling environment to lead. A leader must be in position to address the needs of those he is leading. It's about service, quality service. So I can tell you that the progressive governors, and indeed every governor who wants to be remembered on the good side of history, must perform. Because we have seen governors in Imo State come and go. And we know how every former governor is being remembered. So it is their choice to write the kind of history you want to be remembered for, to address the people and make a name for yourself, or to steal the money and condemn yourself. So this is the thing. So it's about your commitment, the service you provide, in overall, your performance. Syndicate 6, about African leaders. After the scramble and partition of Africa and the colonialism that followed by our colonial masters, Africa has been imprisoned. And there is no how we will have freedom. There is no political freedom without economic freedom. So how to domesticate and grow an economy for this continent should be what we should focus on. We have a situation where even for borrowing money to treat polio, we have to wait for World Bank. To borrow money to put a health center in your village, we have to go to World Bank. And by the time World Bank gives you $1 billion, they'll give you consultants, the people who follow, that will charge 70% of the money. And at the end of the day, you have no quality health care facility. We must behave Afrocentric. We must create our own ideas and take ownership of our own ideas. If you don't say I am, nobody will say you are. So let African leaders rise to say I am. So we should look inward for both our funding needs, because Africa is highly endowed by God with a lot of rich natural resources. We must be our brothers' keepers. Our leaders should shun rivalry and put the interests of Africa in front. Nigeria has paid a lot of dues. We have served South Africa. We served Liberia. We served Sierra Leone under the ECOMOG system. We funded all this in the name of senior brother. All we ask for is recognize our contribution in Africa so that we'll be encouraged to do more. Because even God When God helped Israel, the Christians who are here, Bible, which is about the best literature book I've ever seen, even God is gratitude. He asked the Israelites, I'm your God. You are God who brought you out from the land of Egypt. You are God who made you to cross the Red Sea. You are God who threw manna from heaven. If somebody is every day serving you and feeding you, solving your problems, and the gratitude is not there, naturally, the person will be demoralized. Nigeria still remains the trigger to activate prosperity in Africa. Thank you.